we are passing around some sheets right now for those that are tuning in online or on Zoom or Teams. You guys are probably seeing this guy here. Are you guys seeing this? The images of everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not seeing the Zoom controls, Adam, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, the Zoom controls and the image here of myself.
No, we do not. I think Zoom's trimming that out.
Okay, awesome. That's what I want to make sure. Okay, so if you want to scan this code here or use the HTTP address for those that are tuned in on Zoom or Teams, this will get you the sheet that we just handed out here in person. So you can be doing that while we go ahead and start the meeting. My name is Adam Ebernickel. A lot of you guys probably already know me. This is one of our newest groups. It's the Altec Birmingham SOLIDWORKS user group. I'm gonna go ahead and spin the camera around here just for a second so you guys can see the room. This gentleman here, this is Chris Robinson. He is the leader of the Altec Birmingham user group. And sitting next to him is James Letson. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen him on our leader meetings. He participates and helps coordinate that stuff with Chris. And we've got quite a few people in the room. We even got our marketing department actually over there doing some videos, so you got to see him too. So we have further announcements. We've got 2 presentations now. We'll have some door prizes. Anybody that is online is able to receive one of the $25 gift cards. Dan, if you want to take a list of those names and maybe just do a raffle as you see on Zoom, just to raffle that off and maybe help us out, distribute that. So we'll do that towards the end. We're going to start out with a presentation here in just a second. We also want to talk about the meeting later. We're going to have a meeting later as well that will be at the Birmingham user group. So we'll be there later this evening. You guys can tune in for those. Again, the Eventbrite page has all that information as far as what presentations are when. Up to this point, just to bring you up to speed, we've had a good ride. We started out yesterday. Brad and I met up on the 2681 junction. And when I found Brad, he's sitting there just a little bit salty because his stator decided to catch fire on him.
Oh my gosh.
So we started out our trip in normal motorcycle fashion. When you go on a motorcycle trip with a bunch of guys, it's inevitable somebody's going to have an issue, right? It's just a matter of when it's going to be. So hopefully we got all the issues we're going to have out towards the beginning. Luckily we were probably 15 miles from the nearest Harley dealership. So we rolled in there. Brad was able to purchase him a stator. At that point, I had a buddy that lived probably halfway between my house and that Harley dealership, about 10, 13 miles from there. So I called him up like, dude, empty your garage. We're coming over. We got a bike to work on and we got to hit the road. So we pulled in his garage. We'll share some of those pictures and videos at the end, like we promised. We'll put a little blog or video image stuff together for you, and you can see that. But you can see Tank wrenching on the bike, me wrenching on the bike, and pulling some burnt stators off. And I tell you what, I thought when we was going to pull it out, we was going to smell like burnt wires, right? Because a stator is an alternator for a motorcycle. It's got a magnet that spins around it and keeps the battery charged. So it's basically a lot of electrical wires, coils, right? And so I'm thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna pull that off. We smell burnt wires all over the place. We pull it out. I kid you not, we smell burnt popcorn. And my buddy's daughter comes down from upstairs into the garage, like, what is that smell? What are you doing? And we could only read her mind to think she said, you guys need to leave now. So that was an interesting experience as we got started. We got that changed out, didn't get into about 1 o'clock this morning, and then had to ride the rest of the ride out this morning coming into Altec Birmingham location. So interesting experience so far, but it's been great and definitely memorable. So where we're starting now, this is go ahead and start in the presentation. This is tips and tricks to make your life easier. I don't want to claim the credit for this. Ryan Bird actually created this a while back, and in commemoration of him, he did a great job with it. I really enjoyed this presentation. He presented it many times at World. I kind of took a liberty and put a little spin on it in some cases. So yeah, download that link, get your paper. There'll also be, I think, a link at the end that'll have the answers, but we'll kind of go through these and look at some basic cool tips and great tricks that you can use to enhance your usability and make SolidWorks work for you just a little bit more. As you can see, the things we're going to talk about a little bit is going to be system options, shortcut bars, using sketches, part creation, and what can help us in assembly as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and talk about system options. Well, before I get to that, let me go ahead and introduce myself. So I'm a senior designer, product engineer with Altec, do adjunct and applied engineering with Mainland Community College, just local there to the Burnsville-Asheville area. Co-lead the Western North Carolina Asheville SWUG, SWUGing committee member for the Southeast region and the Altec user groups. SolidWorks champion and a SolidWorks certified SolidWorks expert. So that's just a little bit about me and my credentials, I guess. Some of the key takeaways here. Number one, gain the edge, right? Gain the edge and make yourself more proficient and efficient. Number two, reduce mouse miles. I don't know if many people have heard about that, maybe in this room or tuned in on Teams or on Zoom, but what are mouse miles? Mouse miles is every time you move your mouse from one spot in the screen to another spot in the screen, you know, that accumulates into mileage. There's actually apps and programs out there that will calculate that for you. So the more you're moving your mouse between 3 monitors, 4 monitors, 2 monitors, 1 monitor from one corner to the next, you're accumulating mouse miles. Those mouse miles are taking up time. It doesn't seem like much. Maybe it's only a millisecond or a half a second to get from corner to corner. But think about how many times you're doing that throughout the day and then throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout the year. That really does add up and can consume your time. So if we can reduce our mouse miles, we will become faster at what we do. And the third thing I say in almost every presentation I give is implement at least one. Right? Sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 times of hearing something before it sinks in and it kind of chisels itself into the files of the brain and you start to use it. But I guarantee if you'll take at least one thing off this sheet of paper or off this presentation and implement it today and start implementing it throughout the week, that will help it ingrain. And that's what I do when I go to World, when I go to these SolidWorks user groups. I try and take a nugget home with me, and I might not be able to capture the whole thing, right? But if I take that one nugget, I have became a little bit better, right? And the more I attend, the more of those nuggets I'm able to implement. All right, so when we're talking about system options, what do you think you could do to rotate the sketch plane on the sketch creation? We can select auto rotate, and we'll kind of go through some of this. I'll run through the list, and then we'll kind of dive into it a little bit more too. The second thing we can do, the numeric input on entry creation. So enable that on screen, and you can kind of see some of these GIFs that I've got loaded up and where that's actually at. I'm sorry, we're going to go through this one and then we'll go to the next one. I jumped ahead. So you can see the GIFs. Basically what you've done is you go into the system options, you can go to sketch, and when you go to sketch, you'll see the location that I've got highlighted blue there. You check that off. What that does is anytime you pick on a plane to draw a flange or another extruded surface or a cut, whatever that case may be, automatically rotates that. Now, sometimes, yeah, it's nice to have it in isometric or whatever view you're looking at so you can kind of see where you're going. But on a basic sketch or you're just wanting to draw something out, it's always nice to have that rotate to you. So auto rotate, view normal to sketch plane on sketch creation. The next thing, where I jumped ahead. What's the next thing? Numeric input on entry creation. So you're basically going to enable that on screen. We'll look at a GIF for that as well. So if you go in here and you go to your sketches, go ahead and check those 2 boxes. You have to check the first one first. And that enables the numeric input entry on screen. What that's going to do for you is when you go to create a box or a line and you type in that value, it's going to automatically input that and lock it down for you and create that relationship or that dimension. All right, the next one is dimension, and that's that that check down underneath it. It was dimension only when value is entered, right? And that's create. That was that next box under I talked about in the last slide. Now we'll jump into assemblies. What can help us with assemblies? Or this one, oh, I'm sorry, I actually added this one in. Sketch snaps. So if you use the F5 key or toggle that on and off, that can help you. I know sometimes you come in and you're trying to snap to a point or draw something off and it's trying to pull it somewhere else. So you'd be able to toggle that off and on with F5 or be able to choose what you want to snap to. That can definitely help. Filters, we'll get to that a little bit later. I think it's on here. Filters is also another power user thing as well. But there's your sketch snaps, being able to turn those off and on and select which ones you want enabled. I mean, that's why filters can come in handy. And again, we'll get to that because there may be a point where you just need a midpoint or you just need an endpoint and it kind of jumps back and forth. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself on that one. All right. To the CAD mobile. Let's see.
I'm watching the chat for questions if anybody has it.
Okay. Yeah, let me know if anybody does. Minimize this guy up here. Okay, so a lot of these things, and we'll get into more of the system options and how to search things here in a minute. But again, a lot of these things live up in your system options. So you're just going to click your mouse cog up there, and that's how you will access that stuff. A very powerful tool, and we'll see that later. So when it comes up, you might be able to remember that and holler it out, is to use your search tool. So if you forget one of these tools today, but you can remember the name or it's on your list, simply enter it in and it'll automatically populate that or give you a direction to go to get it. So that's very powerful. Come back. So assembly mode to improve performance. What would that first word do, you think? Lightweight can help. Lightweight can definitely help. Large assembly mode is also a good one. And so you can see there's different ways of utilizing that. So when you select your large assembly mode, your system options again, you go to your assemblies, you can turn that on. And actually, as you stated, Chris, I don't know if anybody heard that, but Chris actually mentioned lightweight being a good tool. And that is a good tool because inside the large assembly mode, you can actually choose how large that assembly is and if it exceeds a certain amount of components, and you can set those limits within that. I was using LDR, so if it exceeds a certain amount, then you know it's going to use the large design review as well. All right, set part values. This is a really nice one as far as default templates go. It'll definitely make your life easier if you go in and create your start parts, your start assemblies, your drawings. Within Altec, I know we have a lot of that stuff that's set up for us by our IS team and by our design standards group. But for those out there that aren't familiar with that or could utilize it, if you set that stuff up prior to, and it also help keep all your parts, all your assemblies, all your drawings consistent across the board too. All right, this next one's huge. The next few anyway. So use the blank key, customize it for needs. Here's some useful ones, right? We'll get to the useful ones here in just a second. But the best key out there is the S key. And the S key is very powerful. What it does is it's got a bunch of shortcut menus, and you can set those shortcut menus how you want them. How do you use them? I talked to my son the other day. He's just fresh out of high school, and he's working for this company down the road where they're using SolidWorks, pretty basic stuff. And he called me the other day and he's like, Dad, how do I do a certain task? And I can't remember what the task was, right? But once I showed him where the button was for, oh, I remember what it was. It was linear patterns. He's like, I use linear patterns all the time, but I always have to go up to the ribbon and I have to hit this dang drop down menu to get the linear patterns. How can I make that quicker? How can I make it more efficient? I said, dude, I got a couple steps better for you. And it began with mouse gestures, which we'll get to in a minute. But what I showed him was the S key as well, and how you can go into the S key, and we'll jump into that in just a second, and even show you how to customize it. But hit the S key, whatever environment you're in, and we'll get a little more in detail into that. It will populate a list of commands that are right there at your mouse. I mean, how much easier can it be? You don't even have to take mouse miles to go up to the ribbon at the top, right? You don't have to type it in. You just go up and get it, right? Now, some of the different ones to put on there. The first one is power. Who thinks they know what the second word of that power is? Power trim. Yeah, I got a lot of answers on that. Power trim, it is so powerful. And we're going to talk a little bit about power trim once we get into it, because power trim is huge. There's a lot of things you can do with power trim, just some simple buttons to keep you from having to click around things and undo things and whatnot. There's even a oops thing on there that I'll talk about here in a second. What about dimensions? Smart dimensions, correct. Yeah, you guys got that. Smart dimensions. Smart dimensions are awesome. I mean, if you got something in mind, like ordinance dimension, you know, you got to go pick ordinance dimension or pick it up where you left off with an ordinance dimension. Smart dimension is also great because if you use it right, you can sometimes only click one line versus two lines, right? So it can really be time saving there. Next one's going to be convert entities. If you don't know about convert entities within Altec, you definitely should. And I think that goes for anybody that's dealing with any kind of sub-assemblies or where they're mating and needing to put bolts through things that have slots, you know, to line up with it. We'll talk a little bit about convert entities as well. There's a couple other here I'll just throw on: extrude, cut, and of course, what I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking to my son, don't forget your mouse gestures. We're also going to talk about, hopefully on this list, I think it's on there, about saving these things out. And if it's not, we will talk about it. Because once you set this stuff up, you don't want to lose it, right? You want to be able to take it from computer to computer, or SolidWorks 2021 to 2022. You know, you want to be able to take those things with you and not have to recreate them every time. But yeah, don't forget your mouse gestures. They're customizable for each environment. And even what some power users do is they'll combine their S key, not search, but their S key, they'll combine it with their mouse gesture. So if they're using 4 quadrants or 6 or 8 or 12, one of those could be your S key, right? Think about that. So now you have a menu inside of a menu right at your mouse. Okay. And command search, huge. This is like, if you don't know command search and the powers that it can hold, there's a lot to it. And we'll talk about that too. And back to my display, to the CAD mobile. We're going to switch back to the CAD mobile. We're going to run through these. We're going to talk about the S key first. How do we set up the S key, right? My computer's set up a little different, so I'm not going to try and pull the S key with just the S button because I have completely customized all my hotkeys. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have a macro pad, which you'll see in a later edition of this week. In one of the presentations, when I talk about peripherals, you'll see my mouse and my macro pad. And so I've got all that stuff jiving with different hotkeys. So my stuff is not even the same. But what I will show you is as you go in and you right click on the ribbon at the top, you go to customize. And inside of customize, you'll see mouse gestures. You'll also see shortcut bars, right? So if we click on the shortcut bars here, these are the bars that we're talking about. These are the S key bars, right? Where you can add and customize whatever you do. What I told my son when he called me and he asked me about how do I get to this feature a little quicker? Like I said, he's fresh out of high school. He's just kind of learning how to use AutoCAD on the job as he's going through college. And I was like, dude, whatever you're doing, as you're working through the day, when you have to use that command, add it, put it somewhere, put it on a mouse gesture, put it in a shortcut menu, right? And these shortcut menus are pretty awesome. They're configurable. You can drag them around. As you can see, I can make it wider. I can make it taller. I can make it all kinds of different shapes. I can move this thing all around if I want to, right? Another cool thing is, okay, so this is in part. Notice that that's the part shortcut menu. Notice that if I click the next one, it's assembly shortcut menu, following the drawing shortcut menu, and then the sketch shortcut menu. right? And so when you're in these environments, as you're going through them and you modify those shortcut bars, go ahead and do that at that time, like I was just saying. So if that's that linear pattern, say, okay, I need that linear pattern. I need it prevalent. It's in the patterns. Do I use, or in the part environment, do I use it in the assembly environment? Let's go ahead and add it there if I do, right? Or mirror for that matter, right? And it's pretty easy. All you have to do is go up here and do a search for, let's say, mirror. And then you can come and you can see which environments it's talking about, and you can grab it, and all you do is just grab it and you drag it and put it in place, right? But what if, oops, I dragged that, put it in place, and I didn't want it? I'll grab it and take it off, right? Make these menu yours. Make them yours. Now, when we talk about those different ones, and we talk about the ones that should be there, they should either be there or on your mouse gestures. I prefer to put a lot of stuff on my mouse gestures. And I recently, bumped myself up when they upgraded, SolidWorks. I went to the 12 gestures. I'm surprised they're not going to come out with maybe an 18 and a 20 and a 22, and then we're going to need to use the magnifying glass hotkey just to be able to see our mouse gestures, right? But no, I did. I went to the 12, and as you can see in my mouse gestures here, I'm going to drag this over for you if it'll let me, and I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger. But you can see right there is my shortcut bar on each environment. So I have my mouse gestures set up the way I want them, the way I want to use them. But in my lower, and I did it the same in every environment. Lower left-hand corner of my wheel is where my shortcut button lives. Why did I do that? For consistency. Because if I can remember it in one, guess what? I'm going to remember it in all the other environments too. So that's what I did there. And you can see I've got some mouse gestures set up. We're going to talk a little bit about those mouse gestures as we did just a minute. It's the same way. They actually even made it easier. Back a few iterations ago, a few years back, you actually had to go in and hit a drop down and tell it which, place you kind of wanted it. Now they made it even easier, just like the shortcut menu. I could take it off. I could put it on. I grab it from over here and put it on, right? So that's just very powerful to be able to use those mouse gestures, because I'm sitting here in this part environment, getting ready to make a part, and I'm going to go ahead and let's go isometric. Get that command manager up there, or command search in just a second. So I'm in isometric here, and I select the plane, and I come over. I say, oh yeah, I just need to put a flange on that. Let's go ahead and just draw this guy out, grab my line, you know what I mean? And notice what I did there. I actually drug those out. I held the left mouse button down. So let me go ahead and undo that just so you can see that again while I'm doing it. I might as well explain it. So if you hold the left mouse button down, notice what happens. It drags with it, and the minute I let go, it drops it, right? But if I just click and pull, it's going to actually go until I click the second click, right? So that was super easy the way I did that, though. I mean, I clicked the plane, I used my mouse gesture to the right-hand side, automatically pulled up my extrude tab, and then went right in, did my mouse gesture to the left, and I was able to pick my line and then run with what I wanted to do. But think about that in every instance that you do. Think about every command you do to be able to do that, how much quicker that is versus, I'm just running over here versus coming up here. Right. So that's, again, mouse miles. We're reducing those mouse miles. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here. All right. So exiting out of here, and I talked about that command search. That command search is awesome, right? I'm going to go ahead and unlock my toolbar. For you guys here at Altec, we as IS and as modeling standards team have chosen to lock your command manager up here at the top, your ribbon. Reason why we did that, and I'll go ahead and unlock mine. You're more than welcome to unlock, and I always keep mine locked, because a lot of people, what they do is they drag that thing off and they'd be gone, and they get with Brad or me or a local champion and say, where did my ribbon go? I can't figure out where it's at. It's gone. So we just decided we'll just lock everybody's down. Nobody's going to go missing that way unless they purposely do it. And if they purposely do it, they probably know how to get it back. So yeah, go ahead, and if you're wanting to modify things up here in your ribbon, which I'm gonna get to just here in a second, go ahead and unlock your command manager, your toolbars, and that'll help you with that. The reason I say that is because up in this top right-hand corner where it says search for files and models, it changes from time to time depending on what you used last, or how it opens. But this command one, this is awesome. Why is it awesome? Well, let's say, you know, I use the mirror key quite often, but dadgummit, I can't remember where that thing lives. How do I mirror something? So I could just come up to command search and go mirror, not even type the whole thing in, and you see it's right here. Now it is grayed out. Why is it grayed out? Because, you know, I don't have anything to really mirror. So it's understanding that there's nothing there. So instead of that, let's use something that is there. Let's do extrude. Okay, so we've got extrude here, extrude boss. There it is. I couldn't figure out where extrude boss is, but now imagine this is anything else besides that you may be looking for. Right there it is. Now I can click that and go ahead and execute that command, right? If I click it, the command starts, it's initiated, and I can go ahead and start using that command. But does that help me any? Because the next time I'm probably gonna have to go up there and hit it again, right? Well, what if I want to know where it's at, right? So let me go ahead and shift this over just so we can see what it does. So if I hit that, it's going to execute it. But if I hit this little eyeball over here, watch what it does then. I'm not doing nothing, hands off. Look what it did. It showed me where it was. Now I know where it lives. What if I wanted to create a new part, a mirrored version of that part, right? And there's a way to do it, but you can't remember. And I know it lives in tools up here. Let's see. What am I looking for? Insert. I'm sorry, not tools. Insert part, right? We want to create a new part. So is that right? No. Trying to look for something. We're going to use the command search to find it. Of course, you have a brain fart while you're in the middle of it. Any point being, is that anything you're trying to look for, if you can remember some of the name for it, you can type it in that command search and navigate to it. We're going to take it one step further, right? This makes command search even that much better. What if we're going to use extrude again, just for simplicity? We hit extrude boss. We know that we can click it and execute the command. We know we can hit the eyeball now and that it'll take it and show us where it lives, even if it's in the tools menu, right? But what if we want to use it all the time on a certain ribbon that we're always on? We'll grab that guy, pull him off of the command search and drop it. Now that button lives where you put it, right? That's big. Now, how do you get it off, right? I accidentally put it on there. I want to get it off, right? We'll just go to customize again, move this window out of the way. We'll grab it and we'll just drag it off and get rid of it. But where that makes that so much more beneficial, move my zoom window out of the way so I can see here, is we can come down here and we can make a new tab. And when we make that new tab, we can call that Adam's tab or Jeff's tab or my drawing tab or whatever you want to call it, right? You can build a tab customized to what you want, right? And how do you do that? You add those commands to it, just off the commands there, or you can drag them all off the command search bar and build it how you want it, right? Let's see, I just covered all that stuff. Yep, okay. Alt tab, let's go to the next section. We're going to talk about some different tools here, some sketch tools. Bringing the confirmation corner to your mouse button. Who does that? Do you guys know what that is? What key does that? It's part of breadcrumbs, kind of, yep. It's the breadcrumb button. You know what key that is? D key, correct. Yeah, we had an answer in the back of the room that we pulled that out, and you know, who knows, you might get an extra t-shirt or something. So yeah, the D key, right? The D key brings the confirmation to to your mouse. That's huge. That's mouse miles saved all the time, because how many times we get to an end of a command and we've got to go up to the top right hand corner or up to our command page tab and click the accept or decline button, right, and utilize that. So bringing it to us, I mean, that's a huge win. All right, so D key, to toggle through options inside the commands. Okay, and I'll try and show you this. My keys again are not the same. I'll have to go in and look at my hotkeys to see where they're at, because I've got a macro pad that I've got memorized. But to toggle through options inside a command, there's a certain key. Shift tab. You would think shift tab, because shift tab will toggle through drawings and through models. That's correct. And like alt tab, swaps through programs. But it's the A key. So let's say you're in the arc function, right? Or the circle function. There's different ways to draw a circle. You can do the center point out to the radius. You can do a 3-point, all these different ways, right? Well, those options are in the command menu on the left-hand side of your viewing window. And so if you're in the middle of your screen, you can hit that A key if it's not on the right one, and it'll actually toggle between those functions. That's pretty neat. Utilizing the blank and power trim. This is kind of tricky. So utilizing the power and power trim, right? We're going to talk about power trim here in just a minute in this next SolidWorks setup. So utilizing the power and power trim, and why is it powerful? Why do we utilize that power? We'll talk about a few functions it's got there. Trace back, okay, and we're going to actually talk about these functions now. So trace back over the blank to undo those things. So if you're sitting there using the power trim button, so let's think about this in your head, because we'll get to the SolidWorks here in a minute, but you're sitting there and you're trimming through a bunch of stuff at once, right? You draw that line across all these other lines to trim them off. How do you undo them without going back and hit the undo button? You trace back over the, almost close. We had an answer up the points. Yeah, that's a very good close answer. So trace back over the red dots, right? Trace back over the red dots, and we'll look at that. That'll help undo things as you come across them. Now, let's say you're in power trim, but all of a sudden you need to extend. Do we need to hit escape and go hit extend? So hold down the blank to extend while you're in power trim. What do you do?
Control. Shift.
Shift. Yep. Shift. Correct. So we had an answer of shift, and shift is the correct answer. Hold down the blank to trim. Control. Use the blank to dimension to an outside of an arc. So imagine this, guys, and I know we've all ran into this, right? We've got a slot sketch, or we're in a drawing and we're trying to dimension to the outside of the slot, right? We know we want the overall slot to be 1 inch, not center to center, overall slot. But every time we go to pick it, it always wants to come to the center, right? It never shift left mouse button. Yep. So use the blank while sketching to bypass snap. This is huge. This is another one that goes along with what I talked about a minute ago with the filters and the snap, turning your snaps on and off. This will actually help you turn your snaps off momentarily, right? So you don't have to hit the F5 button to turn your snaps off. You don't have to adjust your snaps and filter if you just need to wing it, right? You can hold the blank while sketching to bypass the snap. The control key. All right, select 2 sketch entities and select the blank command to create a virtual sharp. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and give credit where credit's due. Dustin Rogers, my boss, always likes to poke at this because it's technically not called a virtual sharp. Even though SolidWorks likes to call it a virtual sharp, what is it actually called? So there's a two-ended question. What does it create, and what is the actual name for virtual sharp?
Virtual intersection.
Theoretical point. Theoretical point, yeah. But yes, so when you select two sketch entities and select the point, the command will create a virtual sharp.
Dustin says, just kidding. No, it's not.
Yeah, it is too, because he made me look it up. All right, here we go. Demo time to the CAD mobile. Okay. Using the D key. Let me make sure I know which one mine is. I think it's maybe the R. I'm just going to make sure before I do it. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so we're going to go here. I'm going to use my mouse gesture. I'm going to say I want to extrude a tab. I'm going to give a line to it. And I'm just going to say I want this guy from here to here and then from here to here. I'm not going to give any thickness. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit that. Instead of the D key for me, I'm going to hit the R key. See how that brought that down there? I mean, think about how much time that saves instead of coming all the way up here. What if I was zoomed in something down here in this corner, right? I hit that D key and bring it right to me. I can go ahead and hit that and come right out, right? That's with extrudes, that's with cuts. There's a lot of functions where you can bring those accept and decline buttons to your mouse, so you don't have to go chase them down, right? So that's pretty powerful. The A key to toggle. Let's do this. So we'll come back into that. Get out of here. Okay, so if we run in and we grab our arc point here and we hit the A key, and yeah, mine's not doing it because my hotkey has changed. But in theory, if you haven't changed your buttons, your hotkeys and stuff, if you hit the A key, it's basically going to cycle between these. Okay, that's what it's supposed to do. All right, let's talk about that power trim. I'm just going to draw a bunch of lines here. We're going to go through this power trim feature. I keep my power trim, guess what? Right there. How do we access? I should have brought this up. How do you access the mouse gestures? In case anybody doesn't know, we know how to create them. Hold the right mouse button, correct? Yeah, because we brought up, and of course, I just assumed everybody knew. But yeah, we talked about how to create mouse gestures, but how do we activate them when we want to use them? We hold down the right mouse button and drag over the quadrant we need.
It's funny when that was first introduced, because we had customers accidentally doing it. Like, what the heck was that? And they couldn't figure out how to just do it.
Yeah, it's really cool. And actually, to go one step further with mouse gestures and hotkeys and shortcut buttons, if you have a space mouse, you have an extra set of mouse gestures that you can utilize. So that's something cool, and you can research that. But the space mouse actually comes with mouse gestures too. So you can have mouse gestures for your mouse gestures for your space mouse. So that's interesting. All right, so I've activated the power trim feature. Okay, I'm gonna hold down my left mouse button. I'm just gonna start trimming away here. What is that leaving behind after each time I trim? A red dot, yeah, red tag. So we talked about, I could easily let go and say, dadgummit, you know what? I'm gonna have to go back and I'm gonna have to undo all that crap, and I'm gonna have to come back and I'm gonna have to retrim what I wanted just because I screwed up the last minute, right? So I'm gonna come in here and we'll look at it this way, where we're sitting there doing it. We got the red tag. If we'll trace back over the red tag, it'll pop up what we just screwed up, right? So we don't have to undo everything at once. As we're doing that, if I was in here trimming a bunch of stuff and then I decided to, you know what, I actually need to extend this guy, then I can hold the shift button down and just extend without doing anything or going anywhere else. And then of course back to control to holding control and actually cutting it off again. The arc we talked about, so let's just say we go ahead and draw us a slot here, and it's pretty good on sketches doing it because it'll click here. But if we were in a drawing doing it, if you just hold down that shift button, it will automatically select the outside of the arc. You can kind of see how it did there. I didn't even have to go to the point, right? just in holding it down and clicking on that radius, it's automatically trying to deviate back out to the end of that slot, right? That's pretty cool too. Let's look at the next one we were talking about, which is holding control to bypass the snaps. So we notice we come in here, and I'm trying to come up here. Dang it, I do not want to snap to that center point, but it's going to make me. I want to come up off this edge. But look, if I come up off the edge, it really tries to go to the center point. So let me go ahead and undo that line. Try it again. It's trying to pull up to here. But if I hold down that control button as I do it, it's actually not going to allow me to snap to anything, and I can just put that line anywhere I want. So it completely bypasses the snap. Selecting 2 points for a virtual sharp. So let's look at, just going to draw here, put this little arch. Now notice I went back to the point to draw that arch. That's another kind of tip and trick, right? I'm gonna come off here, and I need to know where. So in theory, with the theoretical point, you need to know where that's at, because that's how you measure off of it, right? It's hard to pull a micrometer off an edge and make sure you're perfectly on the point you need to be at. So if you can draw 2 points, 2 lines where they intersect to that point, then you can actually make that measurement and know if it's correct. And that's how you would dimension it if you were on the floor, right? And so you would actually just grab the 2 different points here, or 2 different lines, and set that up. Now you can make this in different forms and formats just by coming up to your customize tab, right? Sorry, not customize tab, up to your options, right? And it's under document properties, under virtual sharps, and you can pick from different ones. Whatever, suit your boat, float your boat. All right. Let's move on. We're going to go to double click what to zoom off? Middle mouse button. Make use of what? And I know this guy in the back corner is going to say this. Use of what when applying fillets, chamfers, etc. Said it in the back corner earlier. This is a little bit different. That D key, what do you call it? Breadcrumbs. Use of breadcrumbs when applying those fillets, chamfers, and etc. It's really handy to use breadcrumbs when you're in large assemblies. And why is that? Because you can click a part in a large assembly, bring the breadcrumbs to you, and filter from all the way from that large assembly through its different sub-assemblies down to its part level, down to its initial extrusion. You can grab planes of that part. So a lot of times you'll have to go in and expand out a part to find a plane to mate to. Well, if you use breadcrumbs, you can do it from there, and you don't have to dig into your feature tree. Okay. Press blank to show the views and orientation dialog offset planes. So basically, you guys probably all use this. You're not just used to that terminology. But when you hit this button, it basically shows this little box around your model so you can pick different ways of turning the model and viewing it. Huh? Space bar. Yes, that's it. Space bar. We'll look at that too. Hold down blank to offset planes. Let's say you have existing planes there already and you need another plane. Instead of going up to adding more planes and points and lines, what can you do to offset a plane and create a new one? Hold down control and drag it, correct. Hold down control. Select blank to reorient a view. And I'll elaborate on this a little bit. So when you're wanting, let's say you've got a box, just for simplification, you got a cube and you want to look at a certain face on that cube and you want a certain face pointing up. What do you do? Space bar again. That's a great way to do it. Yeah, space bar is awesome.
Heads up display.
Almost. So, normal 2. So we're going down the right hole there. So normal 2, but there's a spec using normal 2, right? So what you'll do is you'll select the first face that you want to see, and then the second face that you want pointing up. and then normal 2. That'll actually orient it in the direction that you want. Sometimes you hit normal 2 and it flips every which way, right? And you're like, what the heck? Now where am I at? Now where's that hole go, that's supposed to be getting put in there? But if you use 2 faces, the face you want to see first and the face you want pointed up second, then normal 2, it'll orient it the way you know it needs to be. Makes sense? So the answer to that, let me jump across. I'm neglecting my PowerPoint here. Select 2 faces to reorient views.
After you select 2 faces, then what?
Normal 2.
So I'm just writing the fancy normal 2.
Fancy normal 2. There you go. All right. We're going to cancel this little Teams thing here. The next thing we're looking at is features in the feature tree for faster editing. How many people get a part? We'll just start on the part level. And you've got this cutout for a manifold bolt, right? But you've got a feature tree that's this long, and you're like, dang it, which cutout is that? What do you think you should do in that feature tree to make it easier to edit later? Put it in a folder. That's one great option, especially in assemblies.
Name your features.
Name your features. And sketches. Yes, name them. Right? I mean, if you're making a set of louvers for an inverter, say inverter louvers. It's that easy. And then guess what? When you do that and he comes behind you and copies it over for his job or his product that he's working on, that's that louver feature. I can go in and I can modify the pattern and change it from 3x4 to 1x5,
Better than extruded cut 97.
There you go. So yeah, name your features. That's so crucial. And it's just little things like that that not only help you in the long run, because who knows, and I know we're all guilty of this. We design something one day, 5 years down the road, come back and look at it like, what the heck was I thinking? So not only does it help you when you come back to it, but it's going to help the next man down the road, right? And that helps out not only on your parts, it helps out in your assemblies. Like this gentleman just said, put it in a folder, locate it. Also I don't think I'm jumping ahead on this, but this is just another tidbit of information. Organize your features in such that they don't conflict with each other. Put your fillets at the bottom. Yeah. Make things based off relationships that complement each other instead of conflict with each other.
Plus
Right.
one, you put your fillets at the bottom. You can take them out later for model simplification,
Yeah.
which will shrink your models down and shrink your file sizes down.
Yeah.
Cosmetic features will always go last.
Last. And don't ever put any kind of threads on your bolts, please. All right, so next.
I'm actually been naming. I name everything I do.
Name everything you do. Yeah, I do too. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I get in a hurry sometimes. But I always try and go back at some point and do something because it's so much beneficial. And I'm not gonna say that you'll see all rookies name stuff and all pros name stuff because all the pros are just as guilty as some of the rookies. But it may take a couple of seconds extra time to do it then, but how much time does it save you later or the man down the line? Again, this is all about efficiency, right? And making your job easier, not harder. All right, so the next one, select blank to display or hide all the items. And that's hide all item types, right? And we're talking about, planes and sketches and that kind of stuff. Right. That's a good one. We'll use the command manager for, actually. I think we can use that there. To the CAD mobile. Let's talk about these. All right, let's see if I need to click some of this. So if I'm zoomed in here, we're going to talk about middle mouse button, double clicking that. See how that came right back out? That was super quick and easy, right? The breadcrumbs, we talked a little bit about breadcrumbs. Let me see if I can pull up something that's not too complex. Let's just do this. This is a government project, guys. Keep your eyes closed. All right. So we're going to fit that. Also, the F button is going to do the same thing for you. It's going to zoom off. So also remember the F button or fit. That's a great one to have as a hotkey. If I come in here and I have these breadcrumbs up in the left-hand corner, look at that left-hand corner. And if I hit the R button, in my case, D button for you guys, D button is breadcrumbs for you guys. Ignore my R. It brought it right down to me. Now, not only did it bring it down to me, but it allowed me to select it in the assembly and the part level as I'm building the body, as I'm building the flange, and notice it even gives me the sketches in relation to that, right? But when we come back to the part level, notice I have these planes. That's where I was talking about. Instead of digging into the tree and finding the plane that you need to mate to, it's right here. All you got to do is click the part and use the breadcrumbs and it's there, right? Forget digging in the tree. So that's your breadcrumb speech. Pressing the space bar right here. Let's see. I must have mine set up a different way, but this is good too for orientation because you can actually select it here. Most of the time it'll bring up a box, and I've got mine set up different. Inside of here, and I'll go ahead and add this in because I don't think it's on. It's going to be a bonus. Hopefully I don't have it in my next tips and tricks for advanced tips and tricks, but you can create new orientations. You can rotate these things around. If there's a specific view or a specific, say, section of your model you're working on, you can create views within this that you can automatically click and come back to every time. So there's a lot of cool tips and tricks within that as you work on this too. You can also reorganize these views. You can change your front view to be your back view, right? You can come in with these buttons up here. You can do that. And then if you ever get too far into it and you screwed all your views up, just go in there and hit reset. You can take care of that and come back to normal again. Offset planes. Let me go ahead and turn my planes on here just so I can see them. Talking about offsetting planes here. And I actually did this in this model. I actually did a couple of offset planes here because I needed to have, in this project I was working on at the house, this is a vent for an oven, right, where it vents out the back. I didn't want it to hit my backsplash, so I was trying to vent it out more forward. That's what my goal was for this. And I needed to know the overall size. What did that fit inside, right? So what I did is I came in here, I clicked the mid plane that I had, and I grabbed it, and I went to pull it off. And I said, okay, now I know it needs to be between A and B, right? I went ahead and pulled it off. Well, now I can go ahead and enter that dimension. As you can see over here in the blue, I can enter the dimension and say, I need that to be 7 inches off. And now it just hit 7 inches off that center plane, right? And so you can do that with all planes by dragging them off, and not only with planes. I don't think I have it in the rest of it. You can do that with components. You can do that. It's just holding control and dragging things is kind of infinite. Like there's so many possibilities with that, right? Just play around with that and use it. The next one, two-phase reorientation. All right, so let's say I need to put a relief in the back of this for some reason, right? But I know I need it to be up top. Well, if I just hit normal 2, which way's up, which way's down, right? I don't know. I just lost it. But if I come out here and I hit this one first, like you've seen, and then I come and I hit control. Control is a trick. I didn't mention that. Hold down control. Hit the top, because now I know where the top's at. Then I hit normal 2. It locates it that way. Well, I mean, how do I know I didn't pull wool over your eyes and that was just the same way it went a minute ago, right? So let's try something different. We'll click here, and then normal 2. The second face you pick, and it can be a plane, the second face you pick will go up. Okay. Rename features and feature tree. That's as easy as clicking on it and hitting F2. Just like you would a file, or clicking on it slow and then click on it again, rename that, whatever you want to do there. Hide all types. Let's go over here. That's a good one we can try and find. Hide all types. Where does that live? It's under view, we know that, but if we didn't know that, it even went into the menu and found it for us.
Poke the eye to blind it.
Huh?
Poke the eye to blind it.
Poke the eye to blind it. Or poke the eye to unblind it. Yep, poke the eye to blind it. I like that. Let's hide all types. Let's jump back into presentation. Let's go over the last few. Hold blank when dragging an object to enable smart mate. I don't alt, yeah. Hold down alt. I don't know that I have anything to demonstrate that with right off the cusp, and I don't want to run over too much time because I know Brad's getting ready to jump up. So we're going to speed through these and give him his due time.
Take your time.
Take your time. Brad says, take your time. Next one, press blank over an object to hide it. Press blank over an object to show it. Shift tab. Correct. Use blank to look at only one object or multiple objects as needed. Isolate. A fun fact about isolate is, and this is just after using it for so long and just being nosy, isolate doesn't do anything more than hide everything besides what you selected. So if you hide everything and then you come back and say, oh, I needed that floor or that wall or whatever to show up, just go and hide that one. Or better yet, use shift tab. All right, I pulled that up too quick. You got that as freebie. Save display states to refer to as drawing as needed. That's what we were just talking about a minute ago when I said you could create these new views. If there's a certain view you need to look at all the time, save that as a display state.
This isn't on there, but whenever you go to make perfect relates to that, when you make a part transparent, oftentimes I need to be transparent and I can't get in a position for me to select it again.
Hold down shift.
Okay, go down shift.
Hold down shift. So what happens with transparent is because it's transparent, if you got, say, a bunch of parts behind that transparent part, it's automatically defaulting saying you're wanting a transparent. It means you want to look through it, you want to grab the part behind it, right? If you rotate it and put it to where all you see is blue, the viewing window, and then it'll let you click it. But instead of going through that much trouble, if you just hold down shift, then you're able to click it.
It'll stay transparent, but it'll allow you to
Click it
Yeah.
until you set it as untransparent. Yep. Yeah, great point. That's a good one. Hey, here's yours right here. Use blank to make your feature tree cleaner. Folders. Use blank to insert a new component with existing mates. Copy with mates. You better believe that's on my quick tools and my mouse gestures or my smart or my yeah.
You can kind of almost argue smart mates in that case.
You can if you have a toolbox and you can put that stuff in. Yeah, that does. Smart mates does help. I know a lot of companies and places do use smart mates. We don't use a lot of smart mates here at Altec though. I don't know if it's because of Team Center.
We have some of them set up in hardware, but not much because all our stuff's so unique.
Well, nuts, great point. Yeah. So if you guys didn't hear that in virtual land, we had a gentleman say that one thing he uses copy with mates on all the time is weld nuts. And oh my gosh, it's great. You got a bunch of weld nuts you're sticking in there, copy with mates, bolts, that kind of stuff. And as our TriMac representative mentioned,
Do y'all set your
save mates too.
weld nuts so they won't rotate, so they're fully defined?
Full, yeah. Lock rotation. I'll do it two different ways. Sometimes I'll lock rotation, and then the other times I will set it planar to say we have floor channels in our floors, right? And sometimes you got to have a specific, or when it's rotated a certain way, it's going to interfere with that channel. So sometimes I have to use planar mate, depending on how close I'm getting to a channel. There's actually some other things that talks about, locking stuff down and defining it, but I get into that more. It's one thing in particular I'm thinking about when you're creating flanges and defining flange lengths.
Only challenge with all the rotational mates is that it has to solve every one of those.
Yeah.
You start getting into hundreds of them.
I'll define every one of those, that little minus sign up there, I think.
Yeah, it does. And that's I was getting ready to say, so I talk about a minus sign when it comes to extruding flanges. And what that means, is it really a minus sign or is it not? And that's in I think my intro to sheet metal coming up soon. So that's a cool one because it drove me nuts. The minus sign on the sketch of extruding flanges drove me nuts forever. I talked to SolidWorks over and over about it. And why is it showing me a minus sign? Is it defined? Is it not defined? And the answer is yes.
I just go with the sketch and find my sketch.
But you don't need to,
I do it because that's the way I do it.
because the minus sign drives you nuts. And that's the way it did me too. I understand. But yeah.
Well,
So-
I know the other way I have it locked out.
Yeah.
My sketch is defined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in control.
But I get into more of that detail on why it's defined and why it's not defined both at the same time in that sheet metal presentation this week.
Brad, it was a pleasure being here, and Adam, I've got to run because I've got another meeting I had booked before
Okay.
I found out about this.
Sounds good.
I'll plan to see you Wednesday.
Wednesday in Atlanta.
Y'all have a safe trip to Pennsylvania. Where you going, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm
Appreciate it.
inviting some people to Atlanta, so expect.
Yeah. Invite her to Pensacola too.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to our guy there, Scott.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the barbecue.
Last few things here, the folders, copy with mates. Blank displays all hidden components for selection. Show hidden components. Use control drag. I'm just gonna go ahead and read these off so we can save some time. Use control drag to insert a copy of an existing component. I just talked about that when we were talking about planes. I think I showed it. I can't remember. Use blank key to expand the feature manager tree. This is what you do to somebody that's an enemy, right? You walk over to the computer, you go in the search bar of the feature tree and you hit the asterisk button. Watch their top level assembly in the feature tree. Okay. But now on the flip side of that, once that's done, how do you become friends with that person again? Tell them to use the Shift C to collapse it.
Collapse everything.
And don't forget about the blank feature in the feature manager tree, the search. I'm not going to show all this, probably just kind of show. So this is a search. You can search part numbers. Hopefully everybody knows that. If you hit the asterisk button, it's going to expand everything down through there. If you got stuff expanded, I'll just expand this one. You hit the Shift C key. Notice it kind of minimized everything for me there.
Expand it back out.
Expand it back out. Asterisk. Right. Just see. All right. So that's pretty much it for my presentation. Let me fill these in for everybody so you guys can see those. So some notes to take away from today, if you didn't get anything out of it, check out and use the search in your system options, right? If you need to find something. Shortcut bars and menus can reduce mouse smiles. The D key and power trim can help you flex. Organize and name your feature tree. So my call to action is to give it a try. It's just one thing, give it a try. Where will you start? And practice doesn't make perfect. I always like to remind people it doesn't make perfect, it makes habit. And Aristotle actually said, what we repeatedly do is excellence, then is not an act, but a habit. Okay. Is there any questions?
Where do you export settings, like all the settings?
Export the
That
settings.
carry Not just the mouse gestures, but also the system options, and where you compare that to another.
Yes and no, it will for sure. You can select that in the system options. And I know I didn't talk about that. I said I would. It's real quick. You can just come in here and go to your SolidWorks tools. Usually you have to have SolidWorks closed, especially when you're re-putting them in. Copy settings wizard right here. You just go through the menu and it pretty much runs you through on how to do that. You can select what you want to copy over and what you don't. You can back up everything if you want to, right? And then when you go to reinstall those settings, you can choose what to install and what not to install. So yeah, back it all up. And then when you go to reinstall it, maybe you don't want to use your system options. And the reason I said yes and no is because Altec, as the design standard team and IS champions and stuff get together, and we kind of look at the system options and we try and figure out what's best for all the users. Of course, not one shoe fits everybody, right? Take that with a grain of salt. For example, there's a lot of things in the system options that I help give input to for when we roll these new versions of SolidWorks out. But even I myself go in and modify a few things here and there because I'm a different type of user and I like things to function the way I like to function them to make my job easier and me more efficient. Right.
Also, some of them are locked down by corporate. Certain settings will be locked.
Even if you set them, they'll next time you open SolidWorks, they'll undo it.
Yes, that is strictly for performance and file network optimization.
Here's my contact information. If you need me, there's a QR code for an answer key. If you want to scan that and get that answer key, it's on my Google Drive there. You guys here at Altec, Adam Ebernickel, just look me up on Teams or in the directory. You guys got me there. That is it for my presentation. I'll go ahead and turn the rest of the time over to Brad Meador before we have the door prizes and stuff.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, Adam, while you guys are switching over, I was mentioning to Brad during the presentation, we could control the giveaways from the surveys if you wanted to. Oh, you're muted now, Adam.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a great point. Let's do the surveys as the giveaways to get the gift cards. Not only are the surveys going to help you get gift cards, I know everybody here can get a CSWA or P or advanced codes for that. But anybody that's online or in this room or attends any of these presentations, you can get extra codes, right? All you got to do is complete a survey. The email is going to be sent into the SolidWorks certification team, and they're going to supply you with a code for a certification test. Okay. I'll put the QR code for the survey at the end. Basically, you're just going to scan the survey. There's about 4 or 5 questions on it, Dan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you'll go in, say, hey, these guys did awesome, or hey, they were crap. You know, I've noticed both thumbs up, right? Hit the thumbs down button twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, do that, hit the survey, get the email, and then also I love the question Dan threw on there. Where do you want IronSWUG to be at next year? So without further ado, our Mr. Brad Meador, the tank.
All right. Let's get this thing pulled up here. And we will roll into patterns. Right. So how much time we got left? About 45 minutes or so. So we'll kind of roll through these. And when you guys have questions, please stop me and we will, I can answer questions as we go. I'm very much into crowd participation, either virtually or in person. I have chat pulled up on this other computer over here. Adam, if you want to monitor that. Yeah. So while Adam gets some grub here, we'll let the better looking of the two of us get together, get on and start doing presentation. So my name is Brad. Most people call me Tank. I'm a 9-year employee of Altec Industries as a project designer and a 15-year SolidWorks user. I got my CSWE in 2018, and in my spare time, obviously, I'm a motorcycle minister, a husband and a dad. I ride bikes everywhere. I'm a technology nerd, and I'm also in electrical engineering school because why not just add another thing to my plate that makes me even sleep less. So we're going to keep going. We're going to kind of run through this, and feel free to answer questions as they come up or ask questions as they come up, and we'll just roll through. So we're going to kind of go over some stuff here. Some equations of patterns, geometry patterns, a little bit of very instance and a very sketch. which is actually new to me. And we'll do a Q&A. So we will get going here. So let's jump over to SolidWorks here. Where'd it go? There it is. Nope, nobody can see it. There it goes. All right, can everybody see everything okay?
Sure can.
All righty, awesome, Brian. So we will go to desktops. All right, so All right, so I know we have a lot of sheet metal users in here, and we have a lot of advanced users. So we're kind of go over some stuff here. We know you can use patterns, linear patterns as normal. You know, pump down a certain amount, give yourself a little bit of breathing room. Well, we call that the spacings and instances setting inside of your linear pattern. So, you know, I want 9 or I want, 10 in this graded area. Well, you could set that. Well, you can also do calculations. So we can come in here and actually set patterns. We can add them. Stuff is all backwards from me. All right. So we can kind of come in here and we can use all of our predetermined sketches and dimensions and create patterns inside of our, or sorry, create dimensions inside using equations. So we can always add global variables, functions, or even custom properties. So always the thickness is going to, this material is always going to be this. You don't want your bend radius or your laser to cut too sharp of a corner. Well, you can always add those in. We can work pretty much with any option you see here and get your functions, as well as basic arithmetic. I say basic, but arc, sine, and tangent and stuff is far from basic for some people. We tend to overlook the options. At least I do in my day-to-day. We can kind of rush through our tasks to get them done as fast as possible. So you don't quite understand what you can do inside the part. But if equations aren't your thing, you can actually set, I want to go up to reference. This is another option here. Come on now, stop it. Gotta get my plus sign out of there. Part of being colorblind is I can't see things when it's up there. So we'll go back into our option here. And we're going to set this part up to reference. We know that we want to have this evenly spaced, all this diamond evenly spaced across the part. And we know we want it spaced, we'll just say every 1 inch. And we want it to be up to this reference plane here. And we want it to be offset by a certain amount. And we can kind of change it. So if we want 1 inch, 2 inches off the part, or even increase the spacing or decrease the spacing using your options in here. So when you come up inside your part and decide you want to change the length, and then do you know what the rebuild function is for a single command, for a single change? Control Q? No, close. Control Q rebuilds the entire part from top to bottom.
Control B.
Control B, yes. Control B only rebuilds what you were working with. All right, never mind. Not on Adam's machine. So Control B rebuilds it.
The premise of it being a different beast.
Yes, I see that. So we'll do that again. We'll do Control Q, and let's hope he doesn't mess with it again. And we can set the number of spaces out equivalent or set per the width of your part. Now, how many people have messed with that before? 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Good. All right. Well, I'm going to show you a different one. Have you ever heard of the fill pattern? Fill. Okay, we got a couple. You can also do that as well in this area. This is a new one to me. I'm still learning this one, so it might not work out as intended. So we'll work on this thing here. And we'll go. Yep, and it's telling me I can't be patterned. So we're going to try to shrink it down and set our target spacing to where it gets to fit in. Oh, okay, so that one, we'll kind of skip that for now. That's kind of one I'm still learning and playing around with. If you have specific questions on fill patterns, I'm looking at doing another presentation just on that for sheet metal grading and whatnot. And we're just kind of just exploring that with some new people. So so far, any questions on equations or using the up to instances and things? Anybody actually want to play around with that? Please try it, and always feel free to ask questions. There's no dumb questions when it comes to
Usually an equal size, right?
yes.
Balance your pattern.
Yes.
I mean, if you got holders bolting, I mean, it works great for that. But if you're doing anything aesthetically,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better than having to find the length of the part, divide it by 2, figure out the gap between the side pieces, and it allows you to accomplish your job at a faster rate without having to sit there and do the math or input the equation inside of SolidWorks, which we all know we have different users, different levels of users, and they always come back up. New users can come back into a part and they can't modify it. They won't know how to modify that pattern instance as easily when you have equations. I get questions all the time about equations because it's just not something that many people use. So I tend to stay away from them and use this up to instance instead. Your mileage may vary, of course, but we can always.
Do you think the up to instance eats more resources? And I say that because I remember used to we put slots in shelves,
Yes.
and it seemed to kind of eat the resources, particularly when
That is something we haven't tested yet. I would assume it probably does because it's constantly in flux comparatively to something that's got an equation that's preset. SolidWorks likes things to be fully defined. It actually thinks faster when everything's fully defined. It's not trying to leave options for flexibility. So I would assume it's a little bit faster with that. That's why I like to use the full pattern. I've been trying to play around with that a little bit more than just do pattern and row and mirror. And it just kind of speeds up the process a little bit, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility, I think, inside the parts. Looks like we got. Oh, what did he ask? So the question was. The question was, does the up to reference increase your file size or is more resource intensive? Now, like I said before, it probably is because it doesn't SolidWorks doesn't like to have things in flux. It likes things fully defined. That's why if you've ever listened to Toby's fully defined song, please, if you haven't, go do it. It's great.
Too Tall Toby.
Yes, Too Tall Toby on YouTube.
Fully defined.
But this is something that highly recommend is to get it all defined. So this can potentially be a performance impacting feature. So it's a little something to take with a grain of salt. But I like the question. That was a good question. Right. Let's jump back over here. And yes, I'm making Dan cringe every time I open this many apps on one machine. I saw it. Saw the face. All right, so we're going to jump over to geometry patterns. And we'll get up our second. All So I'm sure people are familiar with a door, correct? And I'm sure you've seen something like this come across your sheet, right? Got to put some vent holes in it, or put a screen so you can look through it, or just lightening the parts. Well, did you know that while it's calculating, at least the last time I was instructed, when it was calculating your patterns, it was actually doing the calculations and cutting every single piece out inside your part. So it's creating lots of resources, lots of graphics triangles, and creating in the background lots of little cuts. So what you're seeing here, hundreds of little square cuts. Well, because we're all busy and we're trying to make things go faster and we're trying to work faster, we've gotten to the point where we've proven that we can switch one option on inside that pattern and speed up your save time and speed up your open time and the calculation time. Because not only is it not having to replicate every cut and create new faces and new graphics triangles, all we're having to do is just copy the shape. Okay. So that is the geometry pattern option. So if you scroll down here, you'll see a geometry pattern option. All it does is make a copy of the square. It doesn't sit there and try to cut every single square. Now, in a single part, in a singular part, probably not that big of a resource hog, but if you've got this thing 6, 7 assemblies deep inside of something that's got thousands of us, every little bit counts with file size. So we try to do everything in our power to make our jobs easier by making things as easy for the program as possible. So we just, you know, we try to, hey, look at that. I didn't know it would come up on that screen too. Cool. Let's hide that out. All right. And so we do our best to try to make things a little bit faster. Now, I do not believe I have a calculation sheet in here. I do not. On this presentation, I don't have the calculation, but we have and your feature expert or assembly expert, you can actually go through and see live options. So we'll go ahead and do that now. We'll see what happens. So we'll jump back over to our regular pattern here. And as you can see, it's sitting there thinking and thinking and thinking. Now, it thought. Okay. So we'll go over to our performance evaluation here. And we could see 87% of our time of that part is just on that linear pattern. Now, 1 second doesn't seem like much. But if you have, especially at this body plant, you have 6 doors on one side. So mirrored over to the other side, you got 12 doors total. That's an extra 12 seconds of calculation time just on pattern of a square. Something that's not really needed in the overall grasp of the part when you're showing a customer or even showing an engineer at the next level, because it really doesn't matter. I mean, all you matters is the finished product. You don't need to see it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to minimize this down. We're going to switch it back over to geometry pattern and watch it make a liar out of me because it's Adam's computer and it changes it. It doesn't work right. And as you saw how slow it took to calculate, we're going to bump it back up to geometry pattern here. And we'll see what happens. It should be a little quicker. I thought. I did. All right. Go back to our performance evaluation. And we've dropped it down from 1 second to just under a little bit over 1 second to just a little under 1 second. Now, again, doesn't seem like much for a singular part, but the more that you save time, the more that you make the software easier, the smaller the files are, especially if you're downloading from a PLM, if you have a PLM software, or a PDM, or you're emailing a file back to a supplier. It makes it a lot faster for you. It's not having to calculate the end conditions at that point, which is what the geometry pattern is for. Did anybody have noticed that little that button, other than the 2 super users in here? No. All right.
There's sometimes it you can't get stuff to pattern without using it.
Yes, that's true.
And I don't know how you have this pattern set up, but two, like, I don't know if one's feeding all of them, but pattern seed only.
Mhm.
And that'll cost you time
Yes.
also, or double it up.
Yes. So agree again. The question was sometimes you can't get it to pattern without the geometry pattern because it just won't do it. The software just doesn't like it. Sometimes it'll error out because of some end condition that's at the end of the pattern or even at the end of the cut that it's not seeing and calculating correctly. It gives you what I call the ketchup and mustard in the feature tree, which, we all hate. And as a CAD admin, I hate it too. So we'll pop open an example of one that will not pattern, I believe, without the geometry pattern. And let's see what we can do with it. Oh, nope, that's not it. Guess I don't have that example anymore. No, I do not. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Again, we're kind of trying to roll through this pretty quick because I know everybody's got to get back to work. So we're going to jump up into vary instances. Now, sometimes we have to do things that aren't perfectly symmetric or perfectly spaced out. So what we'll do here is we will sort assembly. Come on. Pardon my slow network speed here. All right. So we're going to use this weldment as a very instant example. Now this is a big piece of steel that's been welded together, and as you can see, we have a hole pattern, but the hole pattern itself is not consistent. There's some consistencies here and there, but there's not really, a single, derived configuration or a derived piece. So this one here was done with a sketched pattern, and as you can see, that's kind of messy. Does anybody want to do the math and have to try to calculate that as well? No? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to back that up just to kind of work through this example here. Come on. Okay. So we're going to go back over. Circular pattern. We're going to use the outside edge as our spacing, and because this one needs 24 bolts, we're going to come in here and put 24 in there. Just things easy. Okay. Wait, it's components. No, wrong one. My apologies. Wrong pattern. So we're going to go back over here to assembly features and do circular pattern. That's what I needed. So equal spacing of this diameter of this whole cutout around this base plate here. So again, we're going to come put down 24. Did you say, is it a drastic one? I have not tested that. That's a good question. A lot of people don't use a sketch pattern much anymore, at least that I've worked with. So I haven't had a use case to try to test it, but we can try. So we'll see what we can do here. All right. So we got this equally spaced 24 bolt pattern here, and you can see some of these will be underneath parts and over welds, and it's generally kind of ugly looking. Our pattern here, we're going to make some changes in the option itself. Come on now. Go back to equal spacing. This one's not allowing me to give me the circular pattern instances to modify. Give me a second here. Oh, I know why. We'll skip that. We'll go back into our part. Circular patterns inside of parts will not allow vary instance, but circular patterns inside of assemblies will. My apologies. I led y'all down the wrong path here for a second. Let's go back into our part here. Okay. Clicked the wrong model and ran with it. Oops. All right. As you can see, let's go back into our assembly part here. And let's suppress that back. My apologies, everyone. Jump back in. All right. So, vary instance. So we'll kind of go down here and pick some patterns here. So we'll go to add arise patterns. Look at all these patterns here trying to get the same kind of command, right? Now there's also pattern, what's it called? Pattern driven patch, you know, is probably the best option in this situation, or feature driven patterns we like to call it, because it actually bases your it bases the rest of the patterns off, or bases the bolt pattern off of your holes themselves. But we're going to change, we're going to suppress these up here, and we're going to work just with that first pattern. As you can see, there's, let's just go back all the way back to 1 here. As you can see, somebody went through the trouble of putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, half a dozen bolts almost in there to get one pattern out of here. So we're just kind of go through, and as you can see, per Adam's tip, everything's in folders labeled nicely. I can find the ones I want. If I wanted to go through the feature tree, we can do that. So we're going to suppress all these just for now. It was all wonky. Suppress all these. All right. So we can actually do this pattern with one pattern, one circular pattern. I'm going to say this word so many times I'll be tired of saying the word pattern. Don't remind me. All right. So we're going to go over here to our circular pattern option, circular component pattern, and we're going to equally space it around the turntable's center. And we're going to make this thing, let's do this, equal spacing. I'm going to do 24. So, why is this not? It's been a long day. I completely forgot to do the pattern here. So now we got this pattern of bolts. All right. We'll go back in and we can sit here. We can go back up. And at the bottom here, there's this modified instance box. Has anybody looked at that and wondered what that is? Has anybody used it? I see 2. Okay. So we can come in here and I can come in and pick individual ones. It's kind of like the skip instance command. You can skip the ones you want to pattern, the ones you want to do. You can skip it or you can modify it. So we can come in here and modify, and we can individually move that where we need it to be. We can come back in here and do the same thing, back up the ones we need, and change one at a time if you would like. You know, in this situation, a pattern off the other feature would have been the most appropriate, but at the time I believe this model was done, I'm not sure that was part of the software, and I'm not sure how recent of a file that is. But as you can see, I can kind of move the ones in the place that I need. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an option to play around, shrinks your file sizes by getting the number of features down. You can do the same thing with linear patterns inside of parts as well. So we're going to pull up a,
I would think it wouldn't have to solve for as many patterns either.
yes, it would not.
Therefore, making it more efficient as well.
Yes. How many gearheads do we have in here? Gearheads, you know, people like cars. So I'm
More
all,
motorcycles.
okay, cars, motorcycles. I'm sure you all know about this camshaft, right? A camshaft. Did you see how many features it is in the tree to get all the lobes where I want them to be? Because you can modify instances not only with the length of the pattern, but also the rotation. So we can kind of do things. Too Tall Toby just did one on making a spiral staircase out of 3 features or 4. But we can come in here and set our boss here. And we got this pattern, we got this 90-degree angle. That's our angle of orientation of the cam. I mean, why not? That's right. So in here, we can come down and we can say, I want to modify instance to modify. Well, I can actually come down here and collect dimensions as well to modify. And what I did was that 90-degree dimension. And I can come in here and I can click on each modification or each line, edit modified the instance, and I can change the degree of rotation and the spacing. So, you know, you're working at comp camps and you know that it's a small block Chevrolet or a big block Chevrolet, you need to space your cams out, your cam lobes differently. You can come in here and change the length of your cam lobe and just move it. So now we can come in here and we can change your angle around. We can bump it around 4 or 5 degrees and change the way it all rotates. So this kind of gives you an idea of a little bit of flexibility inside of each pattern. You just got to learn, play around and try to implement one little thing at a time by adding buttons.
When was that added?
I am not sure. That's a good
I
question.
don't remember. I don't remember ever seeing it.
Yeah.
Wonder, Dan, do you know when that was added?
Dan, do you know
Say it again, guys.
when the modified instance was added to patterns?
It's within the last 5 years, I want to say. It's pretty new.
Yeah. It was something that I'd never really used up until about last year when I started playing around with the pattern feature just to learn it.
I know it was after 15.
Okay, after 15, Steve, thank you. So yeah, fairly, well, I say fairly recent, but it's not a, 99 SolidWorks, thing. That'd make me feel really dumb not knowing that it was in there.
It's in the 2016 help, so it's at least
Okay.
that old. I think it's
Okay.
probably right around then.
Okay, so yeah, it's been around a little bit, but yeah, like Adam said, start playing around with these things when you're doing your patterns. So if you've got drawer patterns up and down, you want to add things. You've got different stacked drawer heights. You can change it with one pattern instead of having to pattern the same set 10 times. You can actually make one pattern and drop it. So if you have an 8-inch and then a 10-inch and a 12-inch drawer spacing, you can kind of modify it as well that way. So. Well, looks like we got some more questions in the chat. Oh, yep, there it is, Dan. We'll pull it up here. Why not? Going off the rails here. Yep. So 2016. So it's been around quite a bit. All right. So any dimension that's inside that sketch, you can actually modify. So you can actually go click in that sketch and say if you have a rotation or even a radius, you can change that as well. Now there's a very sketch feature. I'm not sure if we have time to touch that. I'd like to hold it open with some questions. So we'll kind of touch on that on another topic, a little bit more advanced pattern thing. So we will open it up for any kind of questions, stump the chump kind of stuff. Sounds like it's thundering outside. That's great.
That's good news.
My motorcycle is now getting soaked. Luckily, all my clothes are in Ziploc bags.
All right, Brad, you can officially now talk to Coach Thundering.
Okay. So yeah, any questions so far? about anything, like just as just general stump the chump on any part of SolidWorks. I like doing this. I like trying to see if I can actually answer a question or not.
Smart enough to think more.
What? What? Okay. Any? Okay. I don't know. I made it up.
Yeah, that wasn't a real camshaft.
No, it was not because the lobes weren't different.
And also, a cam would never have a straight line.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit off.
Yeah.
There would also be, bearing journals and all that wonderful jazz in there. Yeah. Any more questions? What about in the virtual world? Any chat questions we got?
You call that 100% comprehension.
There we go. Highly doubt that. So